Right, all of you beautiful goddesses here. We have the goddess herself, beautiful Lisa, coming to talk to us today about how to re-enchant yourself and embody that goddess energy. So Lisa has actually, like I put in the Facebook group yesterday, Lisa's written a book on goddesses, and she also runs the Goddess School podcast as well, and a goddess school. So she is all about it, and she's also an Ayurvedic counselor. So she's going to be weaving in all of her beautiful wisdom with the goddesses. And I think we all get really excited about this topic because it makes us feel like, we all have all of the goddesses within us from like the Vedic scriptures and stuff like that. But it's about really how do we harness and embody them in this modern day life? And I think when we know that we are all of them, it gives us this inner strength or this inner radiance or whatever we need to really embody to get through the times that we need to get through. And so I'm really excited to learn and listen to more about what you have discovered within the goddesses and the embodiment of and re-enchanting our lives. I think it's such a beautiful thing that you're sharing with the world. So I'm going to hand it all over to you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me here. And it's just lovely to be with everyone tonight. So thank you for having me. And I'm excited about tonight's topic. It's something that we've been working a bit within my community and something that I've really been thinking a lot about lately. And that's the enchantress archetype and really how we can go about enchanting our lives. Because for me, I feel like that's sort of missing right now, especially in our day and culture where we're often like bombarded with news or we're bombarded with social media. We spend more time looking at screens than we do sunrises or sunsets. And we always feel too, there's almost like this constant desire to consume data. And it's interesting because I know with the women in my community, often when I'm talking to them or some of my coaching clients, they'll be like, well, I'm just getting so stressed out. And then I'm on social media and then I'm doing this. And it's like, maybe drop social media then. And it's hard to do. But one of the things that we have to start looking at is how am I actively creating the life that I want to live as opposed to just watching someone else's curated lives. And I think that we're going through this time where we're really going to have to start deconditioning ourselves from what we've been doing to some extent as far as like social media and even maybe the constant podcast. And I know Harmony and I both have a podcast, so you can keep listening to ours, but the constant need of having to consume so much information, right? It's because you have wisdom that's already within you as well too. You almost don't need that much, but what you do need to do is create the conditions so you can access it. And it's interesting because, again, I talk to so many women, and I have to say that I do this as well, too, because I love learning. I'm like, oh, I want to sign up for that course. I want to listen to that podcast. I can listen to this audiobook on my way to grocery shopping, right? And it was almost like the other night I was cooking dinner and I rediscovered music. I was like, oh, this is so nice. I don't have to actually just be consuming or catching up on a program. I can just cook and dance and just move my body and be in the present. And that's really where I see the enchantress is really starting to create the conditions where she is creating her own life. She is creating an enchanting life. She is spending more time focused on what she is creating and doing and being as opposed to what others are doing or telling her. And that's been a big theme as well, too, that really goes with the Enchantress is how can we make sure that we're creating more than consuming? And that's really kind of my benchmark for when I'm deciding if I want to listen to something or if I want to take another program. It's like, is this going to tip the scale? Because I still want to make sure that I'm creating more than I'm consuming. So tonight I wanted to talk a little bit more about the Enchantress archetype and also give you a few examples of the different goddesses that we can look at and how you can start to embody the Enchantress archetype. And as Harmony says, so the way that I work with goddesses is, it's not a deity outside of yourself, although, you're welcome to work with them in that way if you'd like. You can work with them any way you want. But I think of them as aspects of your highest self. So they're not outside of you, but you are the goddess. So it's like, how do we start to invoke these qualities and these like powers that are already within us? They might have gone dormant, or there might be another archetype that is really your go-to, but we do have them within us, and we just need to remember. And one way that we do that is we start acting like it. And, I'm going to give you a few ways that you can start to embody the Enchantress archetype. But often when I say that to people, they're like, well, wouldn't that be inauthentic? Like, so for example, if someone wanted to attract more love into their lives, and I was like, okay, well, let's like invoke Aphrodite. Like, what would Aphrodite wear? How would Aphrodite go food shopping? How would she eat her meals? Right? Like, she probably wouldn't be staring at her phone and like scarfing food down. It'd probably be like, maybe there'd be a candlelit, it would be luxurious, there might be a little piece of dark chocolate at the end, right? It would be like this beautiful experience. And they'd be like, oh, but I don't do that. That seems so inauthentic. But I think of working with these archetypes as kind of, if you had really weak biceps and you went to the gym to work them out, that wouldn't be inauthentic. You would be developing a muscle. And that's what we can do here too. So if you're like, oh, but I don't do these types of things, like, try it. You would just be developing that Enchantress muscle. Does anyone have any questions before I continue here? And feel free if you want to raise your hand or jump in at any time too. I definitely want this to be conversational. Right. Okay. So first I want to just talk a little bit about just archetypes to level set. So archetypes are universal qualities or behaviors. They're universal patterns, qualities, or behaviors. And archetypes are autonomous. They have a mind of their own. They kind of have an agenda of their own as well, too. So if you have ever said anything like, I can't believe I said that, or I just don't even know what got into me, or maybe like at the beginning of a new relationship where there's like a lot of lust and it's almost kind of these feelings. It's like all of this, like it has its own motion, own way forward. That's like archetypes. Now, we don't want to be possessed by an archetype, and that's when we kind of lose control of the prefrontal cortex, and we're kind of like, I like to think of like that lustful situation again, or we start to just feel that we're just being pulled by something that's not necessarily ourselves, but we do want to call upon them. And often I'm asked, well, are we working with goddesses or are we working with archetypes? And for me, again, you can work with them any way that you want. I often say yes, because archetypes are powerful. They're part of the collective unconscious. So when we look to invoke a goddess, we're actually looking to say, like, oh, please fill me up with these qualities, these characteristics. So we're actually looking to call in to an archetype. So that doesn't make the goddesses any less powerful, because archetypes are really powerful. And that's why Carl Jung, the famed Swiss psychoanalyst, he said, the world of gods and spirits is truly nothing but the collective unconscious within me. And it's within you too as well. Melissa.
Yeah, I've just got a question, if that's okay.
Oh, of course.
When we're talking about, I've always wondered, when we're talking about goddesses and the archetypes, are they an actual, say if we're talking about Lakshmi, is that an actual consciousness there, just like archangels, an actual conscious being that is out there that we can call upon? Are they actual conscious? Is it a consciousness that we tap into? Were they on the earth or just always in that kind of other dimensional realms?
So that's a great question. So I don't know anything about archangels, so I won't compare to that. So they're a consciousness, but not necessarily an entity. So I won't say that though for the Hindu religion. There are some religions that would look at goddesses as deities or entities. The way that I tend to work with them are more in the archetypal sense as a collections of patterns or behaviors. And then when we look at the goddesses, like if we looked at like Aphrodite or Hathor, the Egyptian goddess of love, those are the personification of the qualities or the energy. So we can look at the goddesses as the personification of a consciousness. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. So it's like, I'm just sorry, I'm just trying to make it sense in my head. So it's like there's different versions of us or different identities of us. And I'm like, okay, there's CEO badass Mel, and I need to tap into her energy and her qualities. So I kind of do whatever I got to do to kind of tap in and call in that energy. So I could look at that as maybe not the CEO identity Mel, but that's a quality or deity or archetype that I'm tapping into and calling on her energy. Is that
Yeah.
kind of like it is?
Yes, yes, that's what I would say it is. And we are very multifaceted. So you can think of us as like a diamond with all of these different facets. And often, like, we'll have one or two archetypes that could be our go-to. Like, if you had a really tough childhood, or if you had a lot of trauma or conflict in your life, you may have really built on that warrior archetype, right? Like, I can get through this, I am tough. And then you might find later in life, like the warrior's tired, right? Like there might be a call to soften. There might be a call for like the lover archetype, or there might be a call for like the mother archetype. You might need a little bit more nurturing for yourself. So we have go-to archetypes, but then we can look kind of at this expansive breadth of other energies and qualities. And what they do is remind us that there is another way to perceive or interact with the world. So again, like if you were very much focused on the warrior archetype, you can imagine that everything might look like a threat. Everything might look like another battle to be had, right? And of course, that would get tiring after a while. Now, there's nothing wrong with the warrior. That's what the warrior does. It looks for threats, it looks to win battles, right? So that's the lens in which we would perceive the world. And we probably know people who perceive the world like that. Or if like we were kind of focused on the lover archetype, and we definitely know people like this, like I need to be in a relationship, I need to be in love, this is the utmost importance. And we could say too much of that would be a little bit of codependency. So any archetypes aren't necessarily good or bad. They would have their life affirming and maybe life detracting depending on how they were used. Now, often like we'll have our go-to archetypes, but then, and like Carl Jung would talk about, like it's often kind of like in midlife and beyond, we start to be like, like what else? What else is there? Like I'm feeling this call to explore another side of myself, right? Like I do a Women Who Run with the Wolves book club by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. And like the wild woman archetype, that calls to a lot of women because we've been domesticated, we're in corporate job, we're doing the 9 to 5 thing, we're doing all the things, checking the boxes, and then we're kind of like, I'm freaking exhausted, right? But then we hear about the wild woman archetype who, syncs her cycle to the moon and she's connected to nature. And it's like, ooh, give me more of that. So that's when we can start to get curious and be like, ooh, well, what else is there? What would be another way that I might want to view my life, a situation? Like what should I call in to be more expansive? So I'm not always going down the warrior path or the lover path or we can even think of like the inner critic or like the inner child as archetypes, although that gets a little away from the goddess part that we're trying to go to, but we could think of it that way, if that makes sense. Does that make sense to folks? Yeah. Yeah. And definitely, I would also say too, like when we're working with the goddesses, it's also more, it's art, not science. So it's whatever rings true to you, whatever feels good to you. I think that the important part to know is that, yeah, you have these qualities within you. And when we start to learn about them, like when we learn about the different like myths of the goddesses, and we start to think like, how could this goddess like, yeah, like, so if I want to be the enchantress, like, how would I go about my day? Maybe I'd light a candle when I woke up. I would really stop to savor the smell of my tea, right? Like when I was doing my abhyanga, maybe I'd have some nice mantra music on in the back. And my bathroom would be full of candles, right? And I would really take time to, let the oil sink in. So it's a mindset as well. So Carl Jung said all of these archetypes just live within the collective unconscious. And I just want to like one thing, and like we're like, well, how do we know that this even exists? And as Harmony mentioned, I wrote a book on goddesses. I think of about 38 different goddesses in there. And we can look at the Greek goddesses, we can look at the goddesses from Western Nigeria, the Yoruba goddesses, the Norse goddesses, the South American goddesses. And they all have a common cast of characters. There's goddesses of love, goddesses of fertility, goddesses of healing and abundance. So even though we are separated by geography, tradition, religion, time, space, we see how these cultures had this desire to make sense of these very human emotions. So again, so we see these common cast of characters that knew nothing about each other, and it's like, oh, isn't that interesting? And that's why Jung would be like, yeah, the archetypes, they just live within us. He's like, they're not in the mind. It's almost like part of our, just almost in our bones, right? Like they're just part of this, of how we interact with the world, these set patterns of behaviors. So I wanted to just give a little background on what archetypes is, just to kind of let that sink in. So then we talk about the enchantress archetype. Now, I love working with this divine feminine archetype. And like I said, we've been doing a lot of this in my community, and I've just been thinking about this a lot because the enchantress is also like a creator. She creates her own life, and she really takes responsibility for beauty, for pleasure, and beauty not like as a facade, but like whatever beauty means to you and how you want to maybe look at your environment, how you want to dress. But it's how do I want to really take accountability and control for my experience and make it enchanting. And with really many of the goddesses, but particularly this one, the enchantress like doesn't believe that the world is happening to her, but she's an active co-creator in the world, right? So she's syncing with the seasons. And that's what I love about Ayurveda too, is it's such a beautiful way to reconnect with like the natural rhythms of the world, whether it's your moon cycle or the seasons or the circadian rhythm, right? We have all of these different cycles that we get to work with, especially as a woman. And that's what the enchantress does. She can really start to make magic by remembering that she's not outside of nature, but she's an integral part of it. So I wanted to give you like a few examples of the goddesses who we could say represent the enchantress archetype, because I think sometimes it's a little bit easier to work with the archetypes when we look at the goddesses, because again, the goddesses are the personifications. Now, the first one is Aphrodite. So many of you know her as the Greek goddess of love, beauty, sex. And it wasn't just Aphrodite's like facade that made her so alluring, but it was the way that she interacted with others. So Jungian analyst Jean Shnoa Bolin, she wrote Goddesses in Every Woman. She has a great book on goddesses. She called Aphrodite an alchemical goddess. And that is because she could make gods, goddesses, mortals just all feel beautiful just by the attention she put on them. And we have that power too. And I think sometimes we forget that. So part of that enchantress is just remembering the power that you have when you are interacting with others. And I always say, try it out. Like when you're at the store, look your barista in the eye and smile at him and ask how the day is. Make contact with your fellow humans. Often we're kind of go, 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 but really just kind of notice how you can shift the energy just by looking at somebody in the eye, asking about them, and really giving them your attention. And that's what kind of made Aphrodite the enchantress, is that she could just make people feel beautiful. She had this magnetism about her. Now, the one that I really like to work with is the goddess Hathor, and she was the Egyptian goddess of love, fertility, beauty, and also fine things. And she spent her days like eating fine food, making love, listening to music, dancing with her sister goddesses. And I'm always like, wouldn't that be like a great way just to spend the day? And I feel like in our hustle and bustle culture where it's like, how much stuff can I get done? And, what's one of the things that I've even caught myself saying a couple of months ago, I don't know, like, should I really do this? Like, what's the ROI on that? Like, the return on investment. Like, what? Like, why can't we just enjoy ourselves? Does there need to be a return on investment, or like does everything need to move a needle forward? Like, why can't I just, like listen to music or, read a trashy book or hang out with my friends? So it's really about just bringing the pleasure back to life. And, I would love to even just check in with you beautiful women, like, how would you say your attention to the pleasure in your life is? Now, here's the thing too. So often when I ask the women in my community, like, well, what do you do for fun? You know, what do you like to do in your free time? Most of them will say I like to read or listen to podcasts, right? And I do too. Those are great. But what about like physical pleasure, like pleasure in your body or like really in your senses, whether it's, listening to music. So I would love to just open it up. Does anyone want to share? Like, what's your relationship with pleasure like right now?
I feel definitely this year I have been stepping into that because I did a 4 year master's degree just prior to that. And I really zapped myself of fun, of pleasure. It was just like work, study, work, study. And so I've been very conscious this year. And part of the pleasure for me is like organizing like adventures. So little trips away, like hiking trips with the family, going to Prana Fest this year, organizing, yeah, things to go and do. And for me, I actually I actually really enjoy going to Pilates with really good beats playing because for me, it's fun. It's not like a workout. I love it. So I find that really enjoyable. And although like I'm a yogi and love yoga and stuff, that's got like more of a, I don't know, a devotional, serious connotation to it for me. So I love to, if I want to have fun, it'll be, yeah, letting myself move in that sort of way, more Pilates and stuff like that, and going to dance. I started doing dance classes last year, but now soccer's interrupted that. But yeah, I just think having more fun and joy, we just don't do that enough.
No,
Please
I
don't.
love that. It sounds like that you really kind of stepped into that though, as far as like we're gonna do things that are just fun and pleasurable. So
Yeah. And I also think also, yeah, like also getting up and like I'm such like a shorts and shirt kind of girly, like, whatever, especially if it's like a day where I'm not face to face with clients. But definitely in the last probably year, I've been more conscious of getting up, and I've never been someone to wear makeup or any of those things, but like actually getting up and, doing my Abhyanga and choosing something to wear that's not just the t-shirt and shorts, things like that, just really stepping into that sort of goddess aspect of self as well.
yeah, I love that. And actually, like clothes can really make a difference. Like I know that, when I've like worked from home, and for me, especially like in the winter, it's like I want to be in like sweatpants and like a sweatshirt. And it's just like, this just so doesn't feel goddessy at all. And like I'll have to shift. It's like I'm in like the oldest stuff I can find because I love that threadbare cotton. And I'm like, this is not goddessy. But I can feel it bring my energy down despite the comfort. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Harmony. Anyone else want to share? What's your relationship with pleasure like? Yeah, Susie.
I have just swapped my evening Abhyanga to morning Abhyanga, and I oil myself up in front of the heater, and then I have music and I dance and
Mm.
I shake and I do whatever feels good in my body. And 3 days a week, I do weights all oiled up and I'm dancing and I put Krishna Das on and I sing my little devotional heart out. And I love it when it gets really fast. Krishna Das gets really, really fast in some of his
Yeah.
charts. So I'm just shaking all over. And that feels like I'm not very good at being naked, and I've never been very good at being naked. So I'm saying to my family every morning, I'm practicing my nakedness. I'm practicing my nakedness. I'm doing my oily dancing and whatever I feel like doing. And they don't come upstairs because they're not allowed to come upstairs while I'm doing it because I'm still practicing and it's my time. So that's been amazing. That has been absolutely amazing because I thought, how am I going to fit? Because, my mornings are usually Ayurvedic routine, but a part of that is meditation and yoga. And yes, Harmony, I'm with you. Sometimes I just need to have more fun. There's more of a serious connotation, kind of. So I do that later in the day. I do
Yeah.
that kind of mid-afternoon now. I'll do that practice then, but it's so great. And we get so cold where I live in winter. So I thought this is going to be a really great winter practice. And it's very pleasurable and very beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah.
love that. That's beautiful, Susie. So I think everybody, that would be a great enchantress ritual, is to do your Abhyanga to music. I actually listen to Krishna Das too when I do my Abhyanga as well. It can be really fun. But yeah, like that would be like a beautiful enchantress ritual. And, you know, I like to think of these Ayurveda practices as rituals anyways, but you know, a ritual is a great way to connect with an archetype, to connect with the consciousness. But the thing is, you need to believe they work. You know, you need to go all in. So if you wanted to have like an Abhyanga ritual, like to connect with the enchantress, it's like, really, it's like, think about it. Like, I'm gonna fill me up. I'm going to embody the enchantress. Like, how would Aphrodite or Hathor like oil their body, right? Like what would they be like? Would it be like luxurious? Would they do it a little bit more quickly? Would they be dancing, or would they be lounging? And you know, there's no right or wrong. It's however the enchantress wants to come through you, but really kind of setting that intention. But yeah, that's beautiful. That sounds great, Susie. Yeah, thanks. Anyone else want to share? Or anyone struggling with pleasure?
Hello, Lisa.
Hello.
Hey, everyone. My pleasure is just like feeling the sun on my face, like sit on the front porch with my cuppa and just watch my dog. She often gets tangled around chairs, and I just don't even know how she keeps doing it, but she does. And that makes me laugh. So that's pleasurable as well. And breath work is like so pleasurable for me. I just find I really drop into myself, and it calms my central nervous system. So obviously, yeah, I just feel that's so pleasurable.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, beautiful. So that's a big part of the Enchantress is, yeah, prioritizing pleasure. So really thinking about like, where can you bring more pleasure in your life? The other part is slowing down, right? We have such like a fast-paced life for many of us. And I know, especially if you have young children, there might not be that many options to slow down. But are there little pockets in the day where, you know, Megan, like you said, like you can sit and feel sun on your face, but really starting to look at like, you know, how can I start to savor the world, savor the experiences around me without just rushing through everything? And that's again where I kind of go back to what can we consume less of, you know, and just like digestion is so important in Ayurveda, like what we eat, but it's also anything we bring into our consciousness. Can we actually digest that? Whether it is social media, whether it is the news, or maybe it's the conversations that we're having. So just like you probably are very attentive to the food that you eat, can you be attentive to the information that you're consuming as well too? Is it really going to serve you? Is it life affirming, or is it life detracting? And I think that's a big part of working with any of the archetypes, but particularly with like the Enchantress as well, because, you know, this is like an archetype of more of raised energy and creation. And we can't create when we are being overwhelmed, when we're overwhelmed with consumption. Harmony, how much time do I have? I can't remember.
So we've got what time is it? 9:30. So we've got half an hour more. So it goes to 10:30 our time. But
Okay.
yeah, 15 to 30 minutes, as much as you need.
Okay. So one thing that I love to do with working with archetypes is to do like a visualization meditation to kind of connect with that aspect of yourself. And Carl Jung has, you know, taught active imagination where we get to dialogue with our unconscious. And that's a little bit similar to what we are going to do as well. So I'm going to lead you through a visualization meditation, but everybody experiences it differently, meaning if you don't get a clear visual, don't worry about it. Maybe for you, it comes out like as a feeling, an inner knowing. Maybe you see colors. So don't get caught up on like what is actually, you know, like trying to get a clear visual. But the important thing to do is don't try to think about it too much either. Just let whatever come up. Because when we try to think things through, again, that's our very conscious mind. We want to drop into our unconscious and see what kind of wisdom our inner enchantress has for us. Does it sound good to folks? All right. So you can get comfortable in your seat and closing your eyes if it feels safe for you. You can give your legs a little bit of a rub. You can move your body. Let your body move spontaneously, just taking any movements that would feel good. Maybe you need to stretch your arms or roll your neck. But using the breath and the body as a way to start returning to the present moment and to the wisdom of your body. Feeling your sit bones connected to your chair or couch or cushion. Just getting this sense of being held and supported by Mama Earth. Maybe you start to deepen your breath and finding a place of ease. I want you to take a moment and to imagine in your mind's eye that you are exactly where you are in your room, in a home, maybe at your desk. And as you imagine, you just take a peek around your space. And you notice a door. Just a little bit odd because the door wasn't there before. So you get up from your seat and you take a walk over to the door. And you open the door and you peer in and you see a staircase, a spiral staircase going down. It's pretty dark, so there is a candle right when you open the door that you look to take. Now you intuitively know that this staircase, this spiral staircase, is going down into your unconscious, which is going to let you meet a different part of yourself. Now, if you want to call an animal friend of some sort to come with you for this journey, you can call your animal friend. You take the candle and you start to walk down the spiral staircase. You're walking down and down and down. And even though the staircase seems to be going down for quite some time, there's a sense of enthusiasm for what you will find. You continue to walk until eventually you get to a plateau. And there is another door. Now, this is another magical door, and it's going to open you up to meet your inner enchantress. Now, because it's magical, it could open you up to anywhere in the world where she feels most comfortable, where this aspect, this of you, likes to reside. So you slowly open the door and you step through this threshold. Your animal friend, if you had one, comes with you. And then just take a moment and scan your horizons. Where are you? And again, this could be anywhere in the world where your inner enchantress resides. And this is the part of you that is creative, playful, magnetic, intuitive. You put your candle down on a little table, and then you walk. You take a step away from the door. And then as you scan your horizons, you see your inner enchantress. And just take a moment to take her in. What is her energy like? What does she look like? How does she wear her hair? What are her clothes like? You're just taking her in. And then she makes eye contact with you. And she smiles and she beckons you forward. And so you walk towards your inner enchantress. And so she says, I've been waiting for you. And so she takes you to one of her favorite places to sit. And so just taking a moment to visualize where one of her favorite places to sit would be. And you both sit down. And again, she tells you that she's so happy that you're there, that she's been waiting for you, and she's here to answer any questions that you might have for her. Your first question is, where in my life do I need more enchantment? Just take a moment to let whatever arise. And if you're not getting clear words, maybe it's a sense or a feeling. And then take a moment to ask her, what activates you? When does she feel most alive within you? What are the conditions that she needs to feel online? And then what blocks her? When does she not feel powerful, not feel activated? What is it that blocks her? And take a moment to ask her anything else where you're looking for her guidance, for her wisdom. You can take a moment to just dialogue with her. And then you thank her for your time as you start to wrap up the conversation. but she says she has a gift for you. And so she hands you a beautiful box. You can take a moment and peek inside. You thank your inner enchantress for the gift. And she thanks you for coming, and she tells you you can come back anytime. And she's always here for you. And then she starts to walk you back to that magical door. If you had an animal friend, you can start to call him back or her. And you say your goodbyes. And you pick up your candle. And you go through the door where there's that spiral staircase. And you start to walk back up. Higher and higher and higher. Up the staircase. And back to your everyday consciousness. And you finally reach the top of the staircase. And you put the candle back. And you open up the door. And you walk through the door. And you come back to your seat. And you take a deep inhale and full complete exhale. And you can start to give your legs a bit of a rub, your arms a squeeze. And slowly begin to open your eyes. You can look around your room, maybe take a moment to reorient yourself. All right. So let's just spend maybe like 4 or 5 minutes just writing down anything from that experience. And I'll put a few things in the chat, like what was your inner enchantress like? What activates her? What blocks her? Wisdom did she have? And what was her gift? Let me just take a few moments just to not jot down anything that came up for you. It'll take just like another minute or so. Of course, you can always go back and do some more journaling as well. Okay. So doing meditations or visualizations like that can really be powerful ways to reconnect with like just different aspects of yourself. I often do a version of this, like maybe when I'm in the bath and I'm thinking about a situation, it's like, ooh, what would my inner Aphrodite, or what's like my inner Durga gonna do? I always mention we have go-to goddesses. Mine are definitely more of like the lover, the creatrix. Durga does not come easy to me, but because there are often times in life I need to call on her. She's definitely the one. Like, what would it really feel like to stand in my power, to access my inner weapons? So we can call on them, but I would love to hear, did anything come up for you? Any wisdom? Or often people are surprised, like, oh, this was the area that I needed to re-enchant, or this is where she lived and I didn't think she'd lived there.
Mine's always in Costa Rica. I think I need to go there.
I think that's where mine is as well too. I tend to
I've
visualize
never been.
that. Yeah. What about the gift? Did anyone notice what gift she gave you?
She gave a really beautiful big emerald. It was like a glorious clear emerald, and it was the same color as her eyes and the white cat that was with me. So
Oh,
the cat and her had the same colored eyes, and she handed me a pink box, and the cup was very specific. Like she really wanted me to see the shape of it and the size of it and the eyes and the whole connection. Yeah, but she was strong. She was really strong, but she also had this really soft and gentle and feminine way, but she was clear. So I have a lot. I do archetypal astrology. I do Hellenistic astrology. So it's archetypal astrology. And I have a lot of Mars energy in me. So she felt very Mars-like, but she had this really beautiful Venus-like energy as well, because I'm ruled by Venus, but where my Venus is in my chart, I'm blocked by it. So even though I'm ruled by it, I have strong Venus energy. It's not an easy energy for me to access. So she is like she gifted me this way to access, and that she can be a support for that Venus energy in me, in my Mars-like ways. Yeah. So that was pretty
beautiful.
cool. Thank you.
Beautiful. And yeah, I loved that the gift that she gave you, and that you also had a white cat with you. Do you have a white cat, just out of curiosity? Or is that
No, I have a black and white cat, and I have had other cats, but I've never had a white cat. But it was a cat that wanted to come with me, and it was a pure white cat that had these amazing green eyes.
oh,
Yeah,
beautiful. Yeah,
yeah.
and something part of the active imagination too is like, oh, if there's something that she gave you, it's like, oh, is there something in your life that you could use as kind of a reminder? And maybe you put it on your altar, like when you're working with the enchantress. So maybe for
Mm.
you, it's like you're looking for like that emerald green color, or even if you had like an emerald green bracelet, like that could be kind of like what you want to do, to put on, like to invoke your inner enchantress. So we can think of like some of the things that we see in our active imagination. It's like, okay, how do we bring this into the conscious world now? And we can almost kind of continue that dialogue, like there's information there. So something to think about when you think about the gifts, or when she talks about like what activates her, what blocks her. It's not just this one and done conversation, but then how do I continue with this, like in this conscious earthly realm?
Yeah,
I need to, yeah.
awesome.
I send houses. I text houses over and see if anyone. Yeah, great. Anyone else?
I'm happy to share.
Oh, great.
I don't want trouble getting into it, and then I got into it a little bit. So I wrote down mine was in nature, but like it was really weird when you were saying, and then you go down the stairs. I already knew we were going down the stairs. Like I thought it wasn't up, it was spiraled down. And so there was things that you were saying. I was like, I intuitively knew that's what we were doing. Like it was so weird. And then we get down there and it's like just like in a field, a meadow with like really perfect grass with flowers in it, and we sat on a log. But I had a sense of deja vu when you asked later to write things down. I'd been there before and I'd sat on that log, but the log was rotten, and so it wasn't a very good space to sit. And then I had this weird feeling that maybe I took the darkness down there, and anyway, she gave me a key, a gold
Oh,
key, and I thought, there's another door,
what do you think the key represents? Maybe.
another door somewhere to find something else.
Yeah, I mean, a key often, represents like, yeah, more to find within our unconscious. So that could definitely be something that you continue to explore and just see
Yeah.
what else is there. Yeah,
I'd
beautiful.
love
That
to
was a fun
say, Megan,
experience.
last week, I'm not going to delve in what you shared on our Mindset Mastery call, but this is really relevant,
Yeah.
I feel, for what you've experienced. So you went down there with the darkness, everything that you expressed to me, and they gave you the key, right? So that key unlocks yourself, the light within you.
Mm.
So it's not out there, it's like in there. So
No,
you have to
no,
unlock that another level
it's
of
in
you.
me.
Yeah,
This
that's
is
what I
so
interpreted.
yeah, that's so true. Thank you, because I have
Cool.
been, yeah, that's exactly right. You're the best. You just like pointed it out.
Isn't it interesting how things connect? So, on a call last week and it kind of still comes through. And that's why it can be so powerful to connect, like when we're not actively trying to think things through, but we let things arise from our unconscious. Yeah. So I wanted to also just leave you with just a few rituals. And again, the rituals, it really can be anything, but it should be something with intention. But some of the ways that I like to connect with my inner enchantress is one, well, I do like the Abhyanga, so definitely that could be one. Anointing yourself with like custom essential oil blend. Like I really love like the earthy cedar wood or sandalwood with some rose. And really think of anointing yourself, like invoking your inner enchantress. Maybe your inner enchantress likes, fresh cut flowers, or you bring more greenery into your house. There could be aspects if you have an altar. So bring things that you want to create or things that symbolize pleasure, beauty, creation. You can put them on your altar. And also dancing, if we think of Hathor, the Egyptian goddess, she spent her days dancing, listening to music, making love, eating fine food, thinking about like, how can you start to, doing some of these things, but with intention. So maybe you spend a few minutes in the morning dancing and thinking like, this is what I'm going to do for my inner enchantress. So lots of different things that you can do, just whatever resonates with you. It kind of helps you tap into that lens of beauty, pleasure, creation. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Thank you. That was very enlightening, helping us step into our inner enchantment.
Yeah.
Really good. And clear message. I've got to get to Costa Rica for me. I think I've never been. So yeah, every time I do those type of visualizations, I end up in that sort of same spot, which is really interesting. So I've got to go find it in the real world, which is Thank you so much. And for the girls on the call, we do have a lesson, I think we did in 23 or 22 in the portal on the different Vedic goddesses and the doshas and how it all sort of intertwines with Ayurveda. So if you want to get more into more goddess work, and also beautiful Lisa's book, where's that? Is that available on Amazon still?
Yes, it should be on. I'm pretty sure you can get it in Australia. I'm not actually positive though, but I would assume so. I don't know.
Was it on ebook as well?
Yes, yeah. So it is ebook and Audible as
Okay.
well too. So you would, yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions for Lisa before we go? Let her have her evening back to herself. And Mel's just popped all her links there in the chat, her Instagram, website, and her book. So it's all
Thank you.
there. Yeah, you're so welcome.
Thank you. Well, it was lovely being here with you, beautiful women. And yeah, it was lovely connecting. And yes, I'd love to hear how your inner enchantress invocations are going. So, but be well. And thank you, Harmony. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. It was
Thank you,
beautiful.
Lisa.
Thank you, Melissa.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
lady.